Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/AITA. In today's episode, AITA for saying it's easy to be a perfect mom when you don't have kids to someone who's infertile? AITA for not relinquishing custody of my best friend's kids to their grandparents? AITA for not including my girlfriend on an overseas trip? Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. AITA for saying it's easy to be a perfect mom when you don't have kids to someone who's infertile? I, 28F, have a 2-year-old son. My brother, Tommy, 25M, has been dating Gianna, 22F, for a few months now. She's a little judgmental, not of me particularly, but in general. She babysits for other children and constantly judges the parents. She says she'd never let her kids act the way the kids do. Sometimes it makes sense and I agree. Others, she claims that her future kids will never, ever throw a tantrum. They'll accept no the first time, the only time. I've told her good luck with that when it comes to toddlers. My son is learning no and has appropriate consequences for tantrums, but he's learning. It'll happen. It's also important to note that Gia is infertile. She can't have kids without medical intervention or adoption. Saturday night, we went out for my dad's birthday dinner. I messed up and didn't prepare my toddler well enough. He got overstimulated and began melting down. I quickly took him out of the restaurant to calm him down before he could cause a scene. It took all of 5 minutes and we returned, he got food and was all good. Gianna started on my future kids will never act like that in a restaurant. I ignored her. The next day, myself, Tommy, our parents, my son and Gianna went to the mall for an event they were having. My son was playing in a structure and I had my eyes on him. My mom asked me a question and I turned to answer her. When I turned back, he was gone. Panic set in and myself, my parents and Tommy, along with some people nearby began helping me look. It only took a few minutes to find him and he was perfectly fine. He had seen a pretzel cart and wandered off. I was still pretty worked up, holding onto him for dear life. He had never wandered off before. My mom was reassuring me, saying it happened to her with both of us kids. Then I hear Gianna, "Why weren't you watching him?" I tried ignoring her. Then she said I would have never let him wander off. I was already so worked up and upset, I snapped. I said it's easy being a perfect parent when you don't have kids. Come back to me when you do. Gianna got visibly upset. She then made Tommy take her home. Tommy and Gianna have both texted me telling me how insensitive that is since she can't have kids. To me, she talks about having kids all the time, so why is it different for me to say that? AITA? NTA. You weren't referring to her inability to have biological children. You were referring to her inability to keep her yap shut. Yeah, it's pretty easy to say you'd never do something when you don't have kids. Kids aren't accessories, they're individual human beings who can and will react differently. 100% this LOL. Me and my husband didn't succeed in having kids, so I understand that one can be hurt by people being insensitive. But I see it differently if one is being put in their place for being judgmental and acting like being a better parent without actually having this experience. I am sorry for Gianna, but she should stop being herself. NTA. Tell her you said those things because you truly believe that she will be a mother someday and will realize what an asshole she's being. It's 2023, we don't parent shame. Watching my wife's sister go through this now. She talks so much shit on their other sister's kid and now she's got quite the free-spirited 4-year-old and is like fuwak, I was wrong LMFAO. Anyone who parent shames, kids or no kids, is immediately and without a doubt the asshole. I sometimes wish a MF would parent shame me. I have twins, so yeah, I'd clear my calendar to rip them to shreds. NTA. I'm sorry for Gianna's infertility struggles and all, but she can't keep poking at you with a pointy stick and expect you to not eventually snap. Fork theory, the stabby cousin to spoon theory. You can deal with lots of little forks or a small number of big forks or a mix of both. Either way, you'll eventually reach the stick a fork in me, I'm done point, and just one more tiny poke sends you over the edge. I saw this on another post and thought it was a good saying. NTA. Gia needs to go back to elementary where we learned if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Be nice or be quiet. We're pretty blunt here. Another one passed down the ages was, if you won't please do it anyway. NTA. Your comment came only after a very long string of criticisms from Gianna. Can she physically have children of her own? No, but she clearly plans on going another route, and she's clearly not too sensitive about the subject because she praises her future children nonstop. I think anyone in your position would have snapped eventually with all her ignorant statements. Heck, I don't even have kids myself, and I'm annoyed at how easy she seems to think parenting is. I think this is something that needs addressing. Gia is making a fuss over being infertile yet goes on about her future kids. OP can't win with her. NTA. If childbearing is such a sensitivity, Gina shouldn't feel as free to opine on her hypothetical parenting skills. She's just embarrassed because you called her out and is trying to throw it back on you. NTA. It is easier to be a perfect parent without kids. True fact. I was in fact a perfect parent to my perfect children 8 years ago. Then I had 2 actual children and had to actually parent them. Needless to say, I still laugh at my naivete. NTA. She insulted you 2 days in a row, she doesn't get to cry when you finally hit back. Moreover, it didn't come off to be as a shot at her fertility. She constantly says she will have kids when deriding others, implying she will adopt or otherwise address her infertility, and so your comment is just to wait until she does. Even if it is a sensitive issue, people shouldn't pick fights if they're that sensitive. Agree totally. I'd also note that adopting often puts parenting in hard mode, and her visions of being a perfect parent to beautifully behaved obedient children need to go straight in the bin if she is going to become a family through that route. NTA. I was prepared to say you should have chosen your words more carefully, but given that she talks about future children, all you need to do is remind her that you see her future children as her children and your family members, so this was not commentary on how they will build all of your family. Every person is a genius about parenting before they do it, and she'll see. That's plenty enough revenge for her comment. AITA for not relinquishing custody of my best friend's kids to their grandparents? My best friend Francesca, 28F, and her husband Michael, 30M, passed away in a car crash. I've known Francesca for almost 12 years, Michael significantly less, but we're still good friends. My fiancé and I don't have children due to the fact that 1. I can't/won't birth them, and 2. We considered adoption/fostering but haven't quite made the final decision yet. My 25F and my fiancé 28M were designated to be the guardians of their children in the event of this tragedy happening. Michael and Francesca had 3 children together, Joe 4M, Sarah 3F, Tessa 3F. However, recently Michael's parents have been making comments about adopting Joe, the 4-year-old boy, and him coming to live with them. I've since put a halt to these comments, but Michael's parents have been spreading it around that it's their right to adopt their grandchildren, although they seem to only want Joe, which is its own bucket of issues. Not only do I absolutely not want to give up any of the kids, Joe's grandparents are old, on Social Security, and having a child in the house would strain their budget, let alone 3 that would have to share a room. Meanwhile, fiancé and I make around $300K a year, combined. We're both software devs, and the house we're in has all the children their own room, although I know the books say you shouldn't. We'll also let them sleep in our room if they have a nightmare/are sad. Also, the twin girls like to sleep in each other's rooms, so they actually have 2 beds in both their rooms, and we generally don't struggle in the financial department. Since I've given Michael's parents a firm no in terms of adopting their grandchildren, I've been inundated with messages that might be legitimate concern, but also feels like passive aggressiveness to me, about relieving my burden and if I really think I'm up to the task of mothering 3 children at my age, etc. etc. I've also received a few letters saying I'm robbing M's parents of their child and that it's their right to have their grandchildren, and I'm the asshole for keeping them from them. I will admit the kiddos and us had issues at first, but we enrolled them in counseling and go to family counseling as recommended by the kiddos counselor. So AITA for not relinquishing custody to the children's grandparents? NTA. If your friends wanted the grandparents to be the guardians, they would have been named. It's also really shitty that they want to split those poor kids up. Good for you, you are an absolute saint for taking the kids into your home. Also, I would highlight that they only want Joe, meaning just the boy. Opie. Do not doubt your decision to keep custody because by some miracle, even if they express their profound love for all of their grandchildren, they are not likely to treat them equally, and it would also be unfair to the children if you allow them to be separated by giving away Joe's custody. I make no comment on legalities of any of this. But presumably your friends designated you as guardians for a reason. Anyone making threats and refusing to be actively and cooperatively involved in supporting their grandchildren in line with the dead parents' wishes and what is best for the kids, they would be the AH. You aren't. NTA. If the grandparents decided to push this further as well, I can't imagine any court granting them custody if they just want Joe. Most legal systems would try to keep the children together. NTA. You were chosen by the children's parents to be their guardian. Why do they just want the boy? To replace the son they lost? I understand they are grieving, but you are doing right by the children and your friend. Came here to say that. It feels like they are attempting to replace their lost son. NTA. But you do let the kids see their grandparents, yes? Oh yes, of course, we were working up to overnights, the kids are understandably clingy and don't want to yet, but now I'm pulling back on that a little with Michael's parents, the overnights, not the visits, until we figure out this thing. If you're in the US, grandparents have few rights. I'm assuming there was a will that specified what happens to the kids? And that you'll formally adopt them? It's probably good for the kids to see the grandparents because that's good for the kids if the grandparents could just be loving, stable people. I doubt these people are being a problem on purpose, they are also grieving. And I'm so sorry for your loss, too. Looks like you all are parents to these kids. A tragic way to do it, but it sounds like you're doing the right stuff. Also, in the US, one cannot will their children to someone. Children are not property. A court will eventually decide who gets legal custody. The wishes of the deceased parents don't mean much either. Get a lawyer. Ask a court to give you temporary custody while awaiting for the adoption to be finalized. NTA. Their comment about you not being up to the task of mothering 3 children at my age, 28, their bio mom's age, made me laugh. They'll be, what? In their 80s when the kids are in high school? Francesca and Michael chose you. It sounds like you and husband are all in to be great parents. I wish you all the love and luck in the world. NTA. Mothering 3 children at my age. 28? As opposed to parenting a 4-year-old when 67 plus? Denial thy name is in-laws. Right, that was my first thought too. She's so young. These grandparents don't have a big enough how or financial security while she and her husband do? WTF are they thinking? NTA op. NTA. Keep all 3 and give them all the best lives you can under the circumstances. Their grandparents can obviously still be in their lives as grandparents. AITA for not including my girlfriend on an overseas trip? I'm someone who has dreamed of going to Japan for the longest time. I have told this to my girlfriend a couple of times before during our relationship. Between us, I'm more capable of traveling because I'm the one who earns more. I had this intense urge to travel to Japan this year, and I was actually telling her to come with me a few times, but she told me that she couldn't afford to travel to Japan yet. When I got the chance to buy cheap round-trip tickets, I informed her briefly, but I went ahead and booked for myself. Of course, she was understandably upset. We talked about this, and the main reason she was upset was because it felt to her like I didn't include her in my decision, and that I was super impulsive. She also told me that it hurts not being able to have the capability of traveling with me. I told her that I understand, and I'm sorry for being selfish, but I wanted to take this urge to travel solo even though she couldn't come. I also let her know that we can travel to other places in the future when circumstances allow us to. I truly understand where my girlfriend is coming from. Now I feel really guilty of what I've done and I'm thinking of not going anymore. It's really tough for me because, of course, I want to share these experiences with her, but I also wanted to really pursue this trip for myself, even though I'm alone. Edit, I'm 24M, she's 25F, together for 5 years now. Planning to go for 1 week. Based on the info provided, I'm going with YTA. You found cheap tickets and went and booked them with no discussion with your girlfriend. Maybe with an actual discussion, you and your girlfriend could have found a way she could go with you. Relationships are meant to be a partnership. You discuss and make decisions like this together. You don't just book tickets for yourself and say bye-bye, I'm off for a few weeks/months. Also, just planning on leaving while you share a home and life with someone, probably the same someone who will have to drive you to and from the airport, is rude. I always at least get a text to check in before my fiancé confirms his trips, even business trips. YTA. Not for wanting to travel solo. That's understandable, and I know many people who traveled solo even once married. You're the for how you went about it and not having a collaborative discussion. Hey, I wanted to go to Japan for years. There's a great deal right now and I want to be able to take advantage. This is a country I would love to just explore solo since it's been on my bucket list for so long. Also, I know that right now it's not a great time for you to be able to join with me. I was thinking of going X to Y. What do you think? I'll scout out some cool places and then when we go together, I'll know how to get there and what is worth seeing and what is just a tourist trap. YTA. If you're doing better financially, why didn't you use your capability to buy her a ticket? And for the love of God, communicate. Also, just go on your trip. You probably killed the relationship anyway. They could split and had a discussion on the costs of planes tickets, hotel/hostel, meals, transports, activities, but choose not to, especially if OP is claiming plane tickets were cheap. Or at least discuss why he doing a solo trip before buying the tickets since he in a relationship and have to make arrangements with them during week for taking of stuff for him back home such as his mail and or taking care of a pet. OP messed up big time in this situation, and since he acts and travels like he's not in a romantic relationship of 5 years, not going to be surprised if he winds up actually single because of this. Info, could you have helped her pay for it? I mean, you've been together 5 years, so you're obviously serious? Seriously. If you care about someone enough, you want them to have a little fun in their life too. When I was 2 years into a relationship with my BF, he couldn't afford to go to Greece with me, so I covered what he couldn't. He helped me out when I needed some procedures done, cosmetic, but my insecurities regarding it were making me depressed, a year ago. If you are serious about a partnership, you shouldn't only think about yourself. This is what gets me, how serious the relationship is. At this point, it's just rude and inconsiderate to plan a trip on impulse for a week without having a discussion about it first. YTA. Put yourself in her shoes. You've booked this big trip on a whim, knowing that she can't afford to come with you. You've then said that hopefully you'd be able to travel to other places in the future, when circumstances allow. Honestly, I'm not surprised you feel guilty. And my advice would be to postpone things. Because given all of this, are you likely to even enjoy the trip anymore? Or will you just feel guilty the whole time? He doesn't want her to go with him. There's no guilt, no empathy. They've been together for 5 years, so surely he would have figured out a working solution between them by now. I'm more capable of traveling because I'm the one who earns more. I went ahead and booked for myself. This is enough to say that YTA, and the one of the biggest I have seen here. Someone who has the decency to write the above when asking AITA is a big one. Exactly. Also, they've been together 5 years, this isn't some fling. Would he really not be willing to cover some of the cost for her? YTA op. This is enough to say that YTA, and the one of the biggest I have seen here. I mean, yes, YTA. But far from the biggest I've seen on here. We get some real psychos on here, man. YTA. If they're really so cheap, then maybe they're cheap enough for her to be able to afford the trip? Or maybe you save enough to be able to help her out with the cost? Or maybe you just wait, Japan isn't going anywhere and cheap tickets will come around again. Agree to start saving maybe. So many better ways of handling this than how you did. I also let her know that we can travel to other places in the future when circumstances allow us to. Circumstances that are now less likely because you've splurged on a trip for yourself? It's really tough for me. Doesn't seem like it was tough at all. You saw the tickets and bought them with barely a second thought. Japan is not going anywhere, while true is not a great mindset. Life is very short and unpredictable. YTA. You're being with someone for 5 whole years and you just up and decide to take a week-long trip abroad alone with zero discussions? That's what single people do. No one in a committed relationship would ever behave this way. Some couples do go on solo trips, but there is always a discussion. I have a feeling he's going to be single by the time he comes back from the trip, so I guess that worked out anyway. 24 years old on Reddit, obsessed with Japan, self-absorbed and clueless about communication in a relationship. Absolutely shocking. He absolutely will shop for a katana while there. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.